Hi friends, Itheria here, and I wanted to talk about the new Criterion dungeons that were just released earlier this week. Now, I've actually seen a lot of mixed feelings and even disappointment, so I wanted to have a discussion about this in general. So I'm going to be covering kind of 3 different topics. First of all, should these be pushed back in the future? Should the Savage mode require you to have current Savage tier gear, so gear from P5 through P8? And are the rewards even worth it? And before I get into this, I need to tell you my vocabulary because I'm weird, but if I say extreme, I mean another Sylvan subterrane, which is the quote-unquote normal Criterion dungeon. If I say savage, then I mean another Sylvan subterrane, savage. If I say normal, then I actually mean the variant dungeon, Sylvan subterrane. Hope that clears things up. So first of all, should these raids, especially the savage mode, be pushed back? So the reason I'm talking about this is because I'm currently raiding in the 8-man Pandemonium Abyssos Savage tier. My group is progging through P8S phase 2 right now, and I meet with them 4 to 5 days out of the week. We typically meet for roughly 2 hours a night, and that's kind of a lot. And even though it works for us, the problem that I have now is that I don't really have time to do the new Criterion dungeons, especially the Savage. I would prefer to do it with people that I know, or at least people who are willing to communicate in Discord, and it's just not realistic for me to set up another static for this at this time because I'm already in a static, I'm working a job, I'm trying to make content. It's just hard to find the time to do this. Editing Itheria here, and I just really quickly wanted to add this in. Even if I had extra time to do these Criterion dungeons, I'm still not sure that I would want to do them right now because I consider myself an introvert, maybe an ambivert. I know that I'm very talkative both in my videos and on stream. If you ever caught me stream, you'll see how talkative I can be. But I have a battery, I have a social battery, and that battery does not have an unlimited charge. It has a specific amount of charge, and I am spending a lot of that charge on my static. I'm with 7 other people in a Discord. It can get kind of noisy, and that's fine. We do have a good time. I enjoy talking with them, but at the end of the day, I don't know that I think I would feel exhausted if I was in a static for the 8-man raids and going in that Discord, and then going in another Discord for a different static, or even with the same people, and just spending more time every day in Discord raiding. I just feel like I would get tired really quick and burned out and exhausted because I just only have so much of a social battery to give, and even though I do enjoy that time with my friends and with my static, I really value time to myself and having alone time and having quiet time and having time to just even play the game by myself with nobody in my ear. So that's another reason for me why I don't necessarily like the timing of this Criterion dungeon, even though I was really excited for it, because not only do I not have time to do it, but even if I did have time, it just doesn't feel like something I necessarily would want to do because of the social aspect of it. It just feels like it'd be a little bit overwhelming for me. So that's just another thing. Back to the video. So I'm wondering if it wouldn't have been better for them to delay the release of this and just release it maybe like a month, maybe 2 later. The reason being, I think it would be good if they could have released it in downtime between 2 Savage tiers, because it would give people something to do, but it wouldn't be like overwhelming, and it wouldn't be like it is now, where I feel like I just don't have time to do it. Obviously, I might be able to tackle it on the weekend, but I'm not even sure that it's worth my time to do that, especially with the Savage, because I don't know, I just feel like I'm not going to make that much progress, but we'll see. The extreme version, I probably will try to hit up on the weekends a little bit. And here's the thing. Doing things early when they first come out is a special experience. There's a few reasons for it, but usually it's things like you can go in blind if you enjoy doing it blind, or your gear is a little bit lower, so it's actually harder and more of a challenge. So if you like a challenge, it's good to go in early. There's also this, I don't know if it's a myth, but people will say that better players tend to do things sooner, so if you don't want to get stuck with lousy players, that you should also do things sooner. I'm just worried that will this still be fresh when I get to it? Will people still want to do it? or not. We'll see. Maybe it'll stay fresh for longer because people like me who are still progging, which a lot of people are still progging through the 8-man raids, maybe it'll be fresh longer because we will get to it later. We'll see. Only time will tell. So the second question here is, should the Savage mode of the Criterion dungeon require you to have current Savage tier gear, so the Pandemonium Abyssos Savage gear, in order to do it? That's the question. So for the extreme version, the recommended item level is set at 610, which is quite easy to get, not a problem. Obviously, the higher your gear, usually the more damage you will do and the more survivability you will have. But having that recommended item level kind of lets you know that, yeah, it's totally doable at 610. So if you did want to flex to an alt job, then it would be fine to just put it in crafted gear and there you go. But the Savage, we don't actually have, it doesn't say anything. Like if you look in the patch notes and you look at the recommended item level, it just says like a hyphen. It just has a little dash. So I have no clue if you could go in there at 610. Yoshi recommended in one of the live letters that we actually do this Savage tier to get geared up for the Criterion Savage. So I just have no clue because it's hard to talk about this without knowing if you can actually do it in 610 gear. The argument here, because there's two arguments about this question of whether or not you should need this gear. On the one side, people are saying, no, you shouldn't, because that requires you to do the 8-man raids, and there's several reasons why people might not want to or may not be able to do those things. And then the other side is saying, we have absolutely nothing to use best in slot on aside from the ultimate raid, or even like not even best in slot, even if you're where I am, which is like 622, 624, somewhere in there. You have like nothing to use that on, so this is an opportunity to make use of your gear. And honestly, I understand both arguments and kind of agree with both because they're right. There is absolutely no reason to have best in slot in this game unless you are going to be doing ultimate. And I personally don't care about best in slot at all. I know some people like to get it because they like to watch their DPS numbers go up and they feel proud. You know, it's kind of like collecting something, so they can feel good about the fact that they were able to get that. But if you're not doing ultimate, literally, there's absolutely no reason to have best in slot. It just doesn't matter. Because literally you're going through all of the Savage tiers without best in slot because you have to go through them to get it. So it's kind of funny, but yeah, there's no point in having best in slot. But I also understand the other side of the argument saying that you shouldn't need any special gear, you shouldn't need Savage raid gear in order to do the Criterion dungeon because not everyone is going to be doing Savage, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not at a proper skill level to be able to do it, because that's kind of always the clapback is like, oh well, if you can't even do Savage then you're not ready for Criterion, but that's not always the case. It could be somebody who is a Savage raider but they're taking the tier off because honestly it's quite a commitment and it takes months and it gets tiring to have to meet every single, well maybe not every single day, but to meet multiple times a week for hours a week to prog this. People, you know, they get burned out and they need to have a break from that. But then this cool new thing comes out that you want to try and you want to do, and then suddenly you can't actually do it because you decided to take a break from the tier. That's just one example, but you know, there are multiple reasons. Sometimes it's hard to form a static with 8 people. It's hard to find that many people, or maybe you just don't want to put in literally months of your time into a specific thing in this game. You know, like maybe that's not what you want to do, so the 8-man raids don't really appeal to you, but then a single dungeon, just one, is something that you're like, hey, that could be difficult content for me, something that I could enjoy because it's just one dungeon, so it's probably not going to take months and months of prog to clear. And of course, I think the Savage Criterion dungeon sounds really freaking hard. There is no raise. Every time you wipe, you have to kill the mobs again. They come back to life. And as you go through, the more time you spend in that dungeon, the harder the mobs are to kill, the stronger they get. This is all in the patch notes. So depending on how often you were to actually go and prog this fight, maybe it would take you months. But I kind of feel like for a lot of people, it depends on how much time they want to put into it. But if somebody just, you know, made a group with their friends and was like, let's do this for a week, they might actually be able to clear. So there you go. A week versus months. You know, I definitely understand both sides of the argument and agree with both sides, both about we finally have something to do with our gear and let's not make it based on the raid gear. I think I kind of lean towards the second one for where I fall, because I just know that if I wasn't raiding right now, I probably would be really disappointed if I couldn't do the Savage Criterion, because I was super excited for it and I really felt like it was the kind of content I was looking for, because, you know, I have this thing with statics where it's kind of like this love-hate relationship. Like, I do really like the static I'm in now, but it can get tiring to be meeting so often. It is a pretty sizable commitment in my opinion. So it's just one of those things where it's like, it's not perfect, and I feel like I said, like, it could be possible to team up with a group of friends and finish even the Savage mode in like 1 or 2 weeks. So you could have your fun and be done, but if you are forced to do the 8-man raids to gear up beforehand, then you're not gonna be able to do it in 2 weeks. You have to spend months on the 8-man raids. So that's why I kind of feel like the second argument is personally where I fall. But maybe you don't have to do the raids. Maybe you just need to keep up with your tomestones, and if you're at 620, maybe that's good enough. I really don't know, so maybe I just wasted a lot of time talking about nothing. But I like to talk, I like to babble, and I like to have tangents, so I'm not too mad about it. Okay, finally, let's talk about the rewards. This is probably the biggest thing I've seen people talking about and being really upset about, is the rewards. So what do you get from the Savage and even the Extreme? You get silver coins. Apparently that is the drop. I don't know if there's any other special drops like minions or anything, because in the actual like normal mode, like the variant dungeon, I believe there are some minions. There's like triple triad cards. There are actual things that come out of the chest besides the little pouch things that you turn into the NPC. So I've only heard that it drops 4 coins for the Extreme, and we don't know how many coins the Savage drops. I personally don't. I've asked people that I thought would know and they didn't know, and we don't know. And if you know, please leave it in the comments because I'm super curious. But what are the rewards then that you can get from the NPC? A framer kit for your adventurer plate? Something like that? An orchestrion roll? A mount? And some materia. Those are the things that you can buy with the silver coins. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. The mount is 100. So the mount is the main thing that people would probably go back for. However, the mount is actually sellable on the market. So if you wanted to just never do them ever, or like clear them once and be done, you could. And you could buy the mount off the market board if you had the funds. So why are people so upset about these rewards? Well, because these are actually pretty difficult dungeons to do, and it feels like you're spending a lot of time and energy doing them, but you're not really getting back anything of great worth. And it's not even like Ultimate where you get like a pretty shiny weapon. It's just like, you just don't really get anything that great, like, oh, an adventure. Like, it just, people are really, really underwhelmed with the rewards, and frankly, I can agree with that actually. Like, they're really not that good. Personally, I'm not like terribly upset about it, just because for me, doing even this current Savage tier is all about the challenge. That's the only reason I'm doing it. I actually do not really like the gear or the weapon from the current raid tier. I don't want to get best in slot in order to do ultimate. I do want to do ultimate someday, but the only ultimate I really want to do is the Epic of Alexander. But yeah, like I don't have a reason that I am doing them aside from the challenge. I just want to be able to hit my heal buttons, because in normal content, I have no reason to hit them. So for me, I would also be doing the Criterion dungeons just for the heck of it, just for the challenge of it, the fun of it. That's really the only thing that draws me in. And of course, I probably would like to get the mount eventually, but my main thing is the challenge. So I'm personally not too upset with the rewards, but I do understand why people are. And I've seen a lot of suggestions that they should put like twine or something as a reward from the Savage version, just because that way people could help gear up their alts or their mains, because it takes a long time to gear up even your main job, especially in an 8-man static, because everybody needs the materials, and that makes it pretty difficult to gear up any alt jobs, so then you can never really flex. And like I said, best in slot isn't really important, so it doesn't really matter if you don't have an alt job with best in slot, but there are some cases in which you might want one, the Criterion being one of them. A lot of people like to be able to flex because, you know, if you're gonna go in Party Finder and you see a group that has, you know, everything but DPS and you normally play healer, well, now you're trying to do the Savage one and you can't because your gear isn't good enough on your alt job. It's been a thing for a very long time in this game that people are upset about how difficult it is to gear up alt jobs while everything is still current. And, you know, it is definitely a fair argument. It's definitely annoying to be like, look how OP my main job is, and then your alts are just like super puny and you can't really enjoy flexing. So It's sad. I personally think it'd be cool if they made the rewards similar to Ultimate, because I kind of have an inkling that the Savage version of Criterion is actually going to be harder than the 8-man Savages, just because you can't raise and you essentially have to speedrun it, because if you're not trying to kill it as fast as you can, then everything gets harder to kill. So to me, the difficulty does sound harder, and it does sound like it'll take possibly longer because there are 3 bosses and mobs in between, so it's definitely gonna take a longer amount of time. So I think it would be cool if they did actually put like a shiny weapon or something at the end, like a coffer, and it would be kind of like an ultimate. I feel like ultimates are such unapproachable type of content. That's why they don't put like fashion in terms of like the Sherlock Holmes-esque outfit that you can get from just farming the normal variant dungeon. And I feel like that would be true of the Savage Criterion as well, so I'm glad they don't do that. But it definitely would be cool if you could get something special. Either like a cool mount at the end that you don't have to farm 100 coins for, or, and again, I don't know how many drop from the Savage, or like I said, like a pretty glowing weapon, or just something a little bit special. I mean, I can get on board with the twine and stuff too, but I personally would be interested in, like I said, something a little bit special and unique for having done it. Like for the Lubermagine Savage, you get a mount, so I feel like it'd be cool to get a mount from this too, but it's like, how many times do you have to clear Savage in order to get the 100 silvers mount? Because the biggest problem right now that people are talking about is just that the rewards don't feel worth it, so it feels like people will just clear and then not go back and not do it again because there's no like value in doing this content over and over. And that's also a bad thing for people like me who might be doing it later, because as I said earlier, if we don't have time to do this, we might do it later, and if there's less people doing it later because people don't want to go back and do it, then the content isn't going to be as fresh and as active as long. So yeah, I really don't know what's going to happen with that, but those are kind of the main arguments people are making. That's the discussion, and that's really all I have to say on it, and I would love to hear all of your thoughts about all of this in the comments. So as always, please remember to leave a sacrifice for Lord Algorithm in the form of a like, comment, share, or subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!